not only to fight for liberty, but to also protect their families. John Stark raised about 1,500 men in New Hampshire. His reputation as a military strategist and field commander inspired trust. Men left services at meeting houses to grab their guns and follow him. Captain John Dearborn, Henry Dearborn's brother, joined Stark in this battle. Upset over Ticonderoga, the Continental Congress in Philadelphia replaced Schuyler with Horatio Gates, nicknamed Granny Gates. He was only 50, but his hair was gray, and he walked with stooped shoulders, and he wore his glasses at the end of his nose. And so that was his nickname, but it also inferred that they didn't trust him because Gates had never led men into battle before. Gates ordered John Stark, that had raised 1,500 men, to go to Bemis Heights. But Stark, being the better strategist, realized the benefit of defending Bennington. Bennington was a supply depot for the Americans, but it was poorly guarded. Burgoyne needed horses for his Hessian dragoons, which was kind of like cavalry, and was running out of supplies due to Schuyler's scorched earth activity. He learned that Bennington was not heavily secured, so he sent 900 Brunswickers, Germans, to take Bennington. As the Germans neared their target, an old Indian chief died. He'd been highly revered by his braves, and they became unmanageable. The Germans decided to show their respect to the chief by giving him a military burial, firing a volley in salute. The Americans heard the gunfire, and the battle was on. Stark rallied his men to fight to the death, saying, "They are ours this night, or Molly Stark sleeps a widow." After a bloody battle, 200 Germans lay dead, and 700 were taken prisoner. Stark's success gave hope to the Patriots, and militias began to build, such as Abraham Drake's volunteers from Northampton. Instead of going to Bemis Heights, Stark went north to block a possible retreat by Burgoyne. What was to be an easy remedy to replenish Burgoyne's supplies turned into a loss of 15% of his army. His forces had also been depleted by having to leave men and supplies behind to hold each fort that he had captured. Though communication between the British camps was slow, and many messengers were searched and killed as spies, one got through to Burgoyne with a message that he'd placed in a hollow silver bullet and swallowed. Instead of meeting Burgoyne in Albany, Howe, who wanted to see the British flag flying over Philadelphia, was taking 15,000 men to Pennsylvania, leaving behind in New York City just enough with Clinton to hold it. Another message informed Burgoyne that St. Leger, coming from Lake Ontario, hit Fort Stanwix and Benedict Arnold and was on retreat to Quebec. Burgoyne's three-pronged campaign was now reduced to only Burgoyne's army with less than 8,000 men. He complained that Tories hadn't turned out in number to volunteer and that the rebels could muster 3,000 or 4,000 men in only 24 hours, most bringing their own provisions. As a side note, Howe, who did take Philadelphia, the Continental Congress had escaped to York, but Washington sent some bad intel saying that Valley Forge was highly fortified and that he would be better by staying in Philadelphia for the winter. So his mistress from Boston, the wife of his appointee there, joined him in Philadelphia, and they went to dances and enjoyed the social life and warmth of Philadelphia while Burgoyne was being hammered by the Americans. Being the illegitimate uncle of the king didn't help him save his seat in Parliament that he'd held for 20 years or saving his command. Okay, back to our story. September 19th, Burgoyne crossed the Hudson, and he reached Freeman's Farm, a short distance from Bemis Heights. Gates didn't want to engage Burgoyne, but Benedict Arnold convinced Gates to send Arnold, supported by Henry Dearborn's 300 light infantry Continentals, with Colonel Daniel Morgan's snipers, dressed in buckskin. They were a newly formed Provisional Rifle Corps from Virginia, 500 sharpshooters. The first shots dropped every officer near the front line, sending the Brits into retreat. Then the enemy's grenadier battalion's bayonets pushed the Americans back. Morgan rallied his men with a turkey call, and it went back and forth for the rest of the battle until the German reinforcements arrived and the Americans were running out of ammunition. So with the advantage for the